consist of a general discussion, review the budget calendar, an update in the current fiscal year. And then we'd like to potentially move to add an agenda item and an action item for the full board. So I'll open it up for general discussion among members. Diane? Any general comments before we go into the budget calendar?
No.
Okay, all right, moving right along. In terms of our budget calendar, so today we're hoping to take action as a full board on the administration recommended budget on February 1st, Tuesday. We're scheduled to submit the budget to the Board of Selectmen and Board of Finance on February 16th. That's a Wednesday. There'll be a presentation of the Board of Education budget to the Board of Selectmen and Board of Finance. And the budget referendum townwide is May 16th. Might have skipped a few dates in between, but that's the general calendar. And with that, I'd like to invite Dr. Cook and Stacy to provide an update on our current fiscal year. So please take it away.
Yeah, and then possible, I think it would help Stacy and I, if the committee's ready for this, and can certainly wait, is just to have an idea of how the calendar lines up for next year, because you know we'll be ahead of it. As you all know, we had meetings canceled and postponed because of you know, things going on, and then we ran into elections, so not a lot happened before this board took seat. We won't have those issues next year, and so you know we would look to recreate this for next year, but it would be great to have some input on that if possible. In terms of, and we wanted a general discussion on there because when we were creating this agenda, we didn't know how far the board was going to get with its budget discussions last week. So you know, I think we had some fruitful discussions, so we were able to not hold a lengthy general discussion today. But in terms of the current fiscal year, and Stacy's here to provide you know, some input on this as well. Just a real high level, we wanted to share that whereas last year we were losing or trending to lose about $350,000 in food service at this time due to the hybrid model, high school students not being all in, canceled days, things like that. Whereas we've been in all year and you know, been able to have a much more normal, you know, food service program. Although prices are up on food, as you can imagine, that we purchase. That's not unique to Madison food service, but it is something that's impacting us. We are trending, you know, pretty much as planned, and so we'll give an update next. We'll plan an update for next committee meeting in terms of how much that looks like, because Art wanted a little bit more time with his folks and to look at food prices on things like kind of the extra a la carte, we call them, items where students might buy seltzer or ice cream or something like that. He's got to look at the prices for things like that, not the regular lunch. But he's doing some work. We'll have an update on that. But it's pretty much looking for how we budget, trending that the budget. So we're thrilled with that. We are experiencing some staffing shortages, as you know, and I've mentioned quite a few times the 10 paraprofessional positions that we've had open. So that's providing us a positive variance in the salary account, as well as some you know, teacher turnover at the end of the summer that happened with lower price hires coming in. So we are trending in the positive range for salaries as well, and then everything else is pretty much on track. So we expect to be trending, you know, very much so in the positive range through the rest of the year, and look forward to giving you some more details. Stacy, was there anything you wanted to add to that piece?
I don't think so. I mean, those are the two areas that we focus on every year around this time. It takes us another couple of months to actually dive into all of the expenditures and see where we at and give a more detailed update. So I think for now, those are the two big areas for an overview to give us a heads up.
Do that.
Have we-
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Have we had any movement at all for the union contract? With regards to salaries, et cetera?
The open contracts?
I'm sorry, what?
Are you asking about the open union contracts?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, I can ask Heather to give the give an update that I can provide to you, but I don't believe so. She's been pretty good at keeping me updated throughout, and I know that they're still struggling on some passing information back and forth. And we start a new negotiation this spring, so hopefully we can wrap up the other two before we start that one.
Okay, I was just wondering if there's any new financial impact from that.
Yeah, we do hold a spot for that, so it's not as if we'll have a negative pull if we don't. Stacy, I imagine there's a mechanism for carrying that money forward if we go into another budget year.
Unfortunately, there's not a great way to reserve the funds from one year to the next, but we do make some projections, for the upcoming budget year, and hopefully we're close on our estimates.
Yes.
So how much detail do you want to go into for potential profits and dates for next year? So we haven't talked in terms of, we talked about starting a little earlier, and so we try to fit it around whether workshops or academic reports. Do we thinking like early September?
I mean, for the budget assumptions exercise for the board, I would like to see that start. I know it started October 4th this year. I'd like to see that actually start mid-September. Actually, no, 9/27 it started. So if we could just start a week or two earlier on the budget assumptions, then we can get the finance committee involved with that a couple weeks later. I'd like to see at least a draft version for adoption by the board for like maybe the second, the finance committee meeting in October, and for adoption by the whole board in the second meeting in October.
Okay. Something to keep in mind. Diane, any comments or thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think, I don't think our current budget calendar was that off. It's just that we had the 2 canceled meetings and that really threw us off. But yeah, I think it maybe just even a week earlier, I think would be beneficial.
And even though we have this adopted budget calendar, at least it would seem with regard to cancellations, snow days, without, like a hurricane in October, which we've had before, an ice storm in October, which we've had before. While this is, we try to hardwire this to an extent to give everyone in the district notice as to when budgets need to be in and prepared by and all of that. I think we do need to have a little flexibility around meetings, and we need to be able to reschedule a meeting instead of just skip it and that sort of thing. So maybe what we could add is a rain date or a makeup date for those budget assumption meetings, for example.
Okay. All right. Be taken under advisement.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. All right.
So I just want to ask a question though about the budget assumptions. So like, when we're looking at them in our book, it's like all, verbiage. There's no numbers associated with it. And I'm just not a big fan of that. Like if I don't have numbers, it doesn't have real meaning to me. So, if we're going to spend a fair amount of time discussing the assumptions, then I want numbers with it. And I don't know how everyone else feels about that, but I feel like, talking in like, sort of, well, we want this, but not a number attached to it. It doesn't have real meaning to me. This is finance. Finance means numbers.
So I would comment on that, Diane. I know when I was first joined the board, I was very confused by what we meant when we talked about budget assumptions. And I do think I look at it now as like our budget priorities or our goals for the budget. I think it's a helpful guiding document to sort of start the process. And then we have the budget book to walk through with all the numbers, but I think it's more about having a better sense for everyone about what we mean when we talk about the budget assumptions. I just don't think it's intuitive what they are. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so maybe we just change what we call it, or maybe we make it more about these are the priorities guiding our budget this year, which that's what it feels like more to me. And then here's all the supporting numbers or something. I don't know what others.
Well, when it was born, if you don't mind.
Sure, go ahead, sir.
When the concept was born under Superintendent Tom Scarice, there was an assumptions element because he wanted direction from the Board of Ed as to where he could advance educational programming and other programming on the one hand, and also on the other hand, he wanted to have backup in a concrete way that says, look, these are the areas that are rolled up due to contracts, for example, right? So on the one hand, it's a public document that requires the board to take cognizance for ourselves that there are certain contractual roll-ups that we're responsible for by virtue of the fact that we contracted for them, right? And so we can't really hold a superintendent and administration to not carrying those out. And then also offering a little bit of give and take for the board to express its appetite in any given year based on fiscal considerations for advancing educational programming in certain areas that are of priority for the superintendent or the administration. And so it's not intended to be a numbers document. It's intended to be a guiding principles document that takes cognizance of rolled up contract lines that we need to fund because we're committed to them. And then also gives the finance committee from the whole board and also the administration, while they are developing the new budget, like kind of guardrails that say, hey, here's what we're in agreement you can go for this year.
So I did one budget under the old superintendent, and he didn't do that at all. Like assumptions, they didn't come at all from us. They came from him, and he would put them in sort of like last minute as sort of a, like, you have to vote on this, but it would include things that we did not have to vote yes to. And it was, that's when it became very, when the board stopped liking the word assumption, because we felt that they were more asks. And none of it started at the board level. All of it came from the administration. So what you're talking about, how it happened, I have no experience with. And this is what, like my third budget. So, you know, I don't have any concept of, of what you're saying of how it went before, even though it was the same superintendent previously. So, you know, in my experience, it was like, you know, here's the board assumptions. We didn't really pay any attention to the language on it. We just looked at the ones with the numbers and, you know, went through like, these are the ones that, you know, are necessary. And then the rest of them are not assumptions. They are requests. They are asks by the administration. And those are the ones that we look at to say, do we support them or do we not? Or do we want to reduce the numbers, eliminate the numbers, whatever. And that's how we did it in my experience so far. So.
Yeah, I can't speak for what happened when I was not on the board, but when I was on the board and the way this time, that's why I referred to when this process was born. It may have it may have kind of trickled from there into something other than what it was intended to be. But as we discussed publicly at our board budget workshop last week, our board assumptions workshop, the goal would be to kind of get it back to the original intent of the document so that the board feels like it can measure our priorities against our mission and be a mission-oriented district and board. And also the board members feel like, all 9 members and not just like finance committee members have a say in directing like what we're looking for in educational funding for that year. And admittedly, there's a lot of input from the superintendent. So, while it's not a railroading, it may have at some times in some years, some superintendents may have just kind of rammed things through and this is what we're doing and this is what I recommend. And that's, the goal of this is to put the brakes on that and to allow the board to kind of offer a good amount of input into the process from the outset and kind of set the parameters with input from the superintendent so that the superintendent can, let us know early and signal what some of the superintendent's priorities are or some of the administrative team's priorities are for the central office. So it's not like the board working in a vacuum, but it is the board taking a little bit more control and kind of overseeing a little bit more, which is really our role.
Well,
Well, all I ask is that like it not be a 3-hour meeting.
okay, well, it's grist for the mill. We can spread it out over time. So,
Yeah.
All right. Are there any other comments about the process or questions? All right. I would also like to, this is not strictly under the committee's purview, but at some point we should probably add an agenda item to the full board for a CIP capital improvement program report. Is that on the agenda tonight? Oh, good. Oh, good. Oh, yeah. Excellent. Thank you. All right. I should read the agenda beforehand. Thank you.
That's a great idea.
Okay. All right. Yeah, there we go. Okay. Perfect. All right. So with that, I'd like to ask for a procedural motion. I'd like to move to add an agenda item before the fourth item on our agenda to discuss and potentially take action on amendments to the board budget objectives to the document called Madison Public Schools Annual Operating Budget Guidelines and 2022-23 Operating Budget Objectives, and to move current item number 4 to public position or public comment position number 5. If that made any sense at all. So I'd basically like to ask for a motion to insert an agenda item tonight. Do I have a motion for that?
So moved.
Yeah.
Second?
Second.
All right, thank you, Diane. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? None? Okay, motion passes 3-0. All right. And now we have a substantive motion, which is a move to amend the board's draft document entitled the Madison Public Schools Annual Operating Budget Guidelines and 2022-23 Operating Budget Objectives as proposed, to recast the Advanced Placement Student Support Program as a 2-year pilot program funded in this budget to a total of $15,000, and to reduce the proposed increase in the facility's maintenance and repair line from the requested $50,000 to $30,000, which is a reduction of $20,000 or 40%, and to adopt this amended document as amended. So
moved.
all right, thank you, Diane.
I'll second that.
All right, thank you, Emily. If anybody has a long memory about the full wording of that motion, or is there any discussion on that? All right. Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Motion carries 3-0. So we will then hopefully bring this up to the full board meeting to be voted on. Okay, thank you. And Wendy, at this time, do we have anybody in the public who has a comment or question?
We do not.
Right. Does anybody else here have any questions? We do not. All right. Thank you very much. Well, I'd like to adjourn this meeting.
Thank
It
you.
is 5:55. Thank you.
Thank you.
Aye.
See you, Diane. Is she coming back in person?
Yeah, she's